Hello, and welcome back to the Just Follow Joy podcast. My name is Ariana Joy. I'm your host, and I'm a human design reader and teacher. And today is my birthday. Well, okay, not today, but when you're watching this, it will be my birthday. And I thought it would be fun this year if we did a little mini reading of my chart. I know no one asked for this, so this is a bonus video separate from our regular programming. But if you want to learn about what you can know about yourself through human design, this is a great little taste. And also will give you a little bit of an idea of what it would be like to get a reading. Obviously this is going to be pared down because I'm trying to fit this into like 35 minutes. So we're not going to go into every part of my chart. We're definitely not going to cover everything we would talk about with you in a reading, but it'll be a cool place to start. And speaking of readings, if you're ever interested in getting one, you can always do that by clicking the link in the description box if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify or iTunes. What is it now? It's Apple Podcasts. You can head to the description of the podcast episode. So let's start with energy type, because energy type is the most important thing to know about your design. It's how you're built to operate, it's how you exchange energy with the universe, and it's also how you manifest. So I am a generator, also known as a pure generator. And that means first and foremost that I'm someone who has a lot of energy. I was just born with this reservoir of energy in my body that's always ready to go. And that's energy for working, creating, moving, doing, because really what it is life force energy. But the thing about me is this is like a very specific kind of energy, and it's very particular about what I'm supposed to be putting it into. So I'm only supposed to be putting my energy into what feels like a 100% hell yes. For someone like me, this isn't the case for everyone, but it is for someone like me. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And the cool thing is that when I put my energy into those yeses and I'm like, ew, no, not that, to the nose, I generate more energy, which is why I'm called a generator. So in English, this means that when I do things that energize and excite me, even if it makes no sense to my mind, or it looks really silly, or it doesn't look like it has a reason, I become a powerhouse and I can just do, work, achieve. And I start manifesting faster and more easily. So focusing on the things that excite me is a really, really big reason why my soul came down here. It's to embrace that desire and really learn how to use that for myself and know that that's totally fine, that that's a totally valid reason for doing something or not doing something. In fact, that is what I'm supposed to do. We just haven't been taught that. And the thing is that as a generator, I'm not built to go looking for those yeses. They actually find me. What I mean by this is the way the sacral center works is it does know what's right or wrong for you, but it really only knows that in response to something, because when it's the right thing, it turns on. When it's the wrong thing, it doesn't turn on. So it doesn't like come up with an idea or a direction or an answer out of the blue, which is why if you're a generator and you ask yourself like, what do I want to do with my life? The sacral center is going to be like, homie, I don't know, come back with a yes or no question. And luckily the way that the generator works is that it's constantly attracting things to a generator. So we don't have to go seeking that thing. And I've had to learn that literally my only job as a generator to get where I want to be is to follow my yeses and drop the no's as much as possible in every moment. And that's how I manifest what I want. The problem is that like most generators, I was taught that I have to get up and go make it happen, but that's not the way that I'm structured to succeed. So I spent a lot of time, especially in my business, even though I knew human design, I was feeling lost. I was convinced that I was like lazy or directionless. I had no initiative. Life had to be hard. Things just weren't working out for me no matter how hard I pushed. And that's because I was pushing against how I'm designed. So things could work out for me, but I wasn't doing the things that were actually meant for me. And also, if I'm being honest, this is why I was so heartbroken when I first learned my design, because being a generator sounded really powerless to me the way it was being described. It was like, okay, so you're saying I can't start anything for myself. I can't just like get up and go do it. I'm literally here to just be a simplistic, mindless motor and create energy. Also, you're telling me I'm the most common energy type in the world, so I'm not special. Why would I want to learn about this system? Like, how is this helpful? But luckily, the truth is that being a generator is actually really freaking awesome, because one, my key to success is literally just doing what makes me excited and happy. And two, it's not that I can't start things, it's that I'm just not supposed to do that from the mind. So as a generator, I can start things. And by the way, there are many famous and successful generators like Oprah, Matthew McConaughey, Albert Einstein. Like if they couldn't start things, they wouldn't have ended up where they ended up, right? So that's not what this is saying. Really, this is just saying that if you were a generator, you have to ask yourself, like, Am I doing this thing because it lights me up and I'm excited about it and it really resonates with me in my gut? Or am I doing this because I'm afraid that if I don't go out and start this, I'll never get to my goal and it's my fault. So I have to force this to happen. Because as a generator, you have to know that the universe is already sending you the next thing. It's just going to look different than most of us were taught. So when I don't do this, I just make things harder for myself and things don't turn out nearly as well as they could. So for example, in my business, when I've created a course or I've had a live Q&A or I've just like done anything really, because I thought like I need to have something to sell, I need to be doing something to move myself forward, those usually don't get a great response, even if they've been awesome offers. On the other hand, when it comes to like things I've actually done out of response, so things I've done because my body was like, woo, yay. This podcast is actually one of those things. So this is one of my clients' favorite things that I put out. This is how clients find me. People book readings through my podcast all the time. And the reason I started this was not because I had planned it or thought this was a smart way to go. It's because my friend asked me, have you ever thought of doing a podcast? And I never had really thought of doing that. That wasn't something I expected. I'm a writer by trade, but I was like, oh my God, that's so exciting. I should do that. That sounds so fun. And it's ended up being like one of my favorite things in my business and one of the most lucrative things in my business too. I also have something called Sacral Authority, which means that my intuition doesn't just speak to me through desire. It speaks to me right now in the moment. So I get snap yes or no answers to things. And that's what I'm really meant to make my decisions based off of. So trusting my desires, even if they do not look like the smart thing to do. That's a big thing for me because I'm an overthinker. Or it's really surprising that I want to do that thing or I don't want to do that thing. It is so, so important for me because that's literally my intuition talking to me. And this is one of the biggest things that I had to decondition because I never thought that wanting to or not wanting to was ever a valid reason for doing something or making a decision. I just thought if I wasn't doing it, but I thought I should be doing it, then I was lazy or it was fear. So I should really ignore what my body was saying I want to do or I don't want to do because that's just something primitive. That's like keeping me small. And mostly this had to do with when I didn't want to do something, like I didn't want to use social media for my business. I was like, you're just not working hard enough. You can make this work. This is the smart thing to do. When the entire time my body, or it was like, you're just afraid of being seen, right? When the entire time my body was like, this is draining. I hate this. I don't want this. Also, another issue with this is because Sacral Authority pops up so fast. So it was really easy for me to just go, wait, no, I need to think this over. Like this, I'm not sure about this, right? When I really was sure about it. But often it wasn't the answer that I had wanted. Or it just didn't look smart or it wasn't the one that I expected. So it was very surprising. And I was like, where did that come from? Right. Because at the time I wasn't very tuned into my desires. I didn't really know. So it was surprising because I was like, why would I want that? That's not me. When really it was, I just wasn't living for my true self. So with this, I've really had to dive headfirst into like, Ariana, yes or no answer. Do you want to do this? I don't care how it looks. I don't care what you think it says about you. That does not matter. No overthinking, just answer. I'm also built for something called peripheral perspective, which is probably the most life-changing thing I learned about my chart. And also actually the real reason I decided to become a human design reader. The first blog post I ever wrote was about perspective, and the perspective arrow is on the bottom right here. So you can see mine goes right. And that means that I'm built for something called non-specific manifestation. So basically what this means is that I don't see the specifics of something in the future, whether it's something I want or something I'm trying to achieve or manifest. I can really only see the general idea. I can see a lot of options and I can see a lot of different possibilities in the now, but I can't see like really far ahead into the future and see like one specific detailed thing up there. And that's not really a problem because all I need is the general idea. For me, that's all I need to manifest the perfect version of what I want. I'm not meant to force the details because I'm not meant to know them. Sometimes I have no clue how this manifestation I want is going to look. I tell myself a story about it, right? But that can get in the way for me because I'm expecting it to be some kind of way. But really, it's something completely different that will give me the feeling I'm looking for and fit the bill of everything I wanted. It's just like, it just wasn't necessarily what I expected. But the really big thing that this helped me with is this tells me that I'm not built for strategies or plans, especially not detailed step-by-step plans. I'm not here to figure out each step, but I've been taught for years that the universe can't give you what you want if you don't know what it is. If you can't see it, you can't have it. You need to be able to visualize this thing coming towards you, or else how will you have it in your life? And then when it came to business, I was told that I couldn't get to where I wanted if I didn't have a step-by-step plan. If you don't see the path, if you don't know exactly where you want to be, if you don't know how much money you want to manifest or make, if you don't have a client avatar and know exactly what they eat for breakfast, you're never going to make it. You're not going to make it there. And that caused me so much stress and held me back for such a long time because it kept me living in my mind. But I'm not built that way. No wonder it caused me so much stress. So now, even though sometimes it can still be tough, I really, let go of, how my manifestations should look, because the universe always has the best, most amazing version of it. And I just have to accept that I'm not going to know the plan. Like, the next thing is going to reveal itself to me exactly when I need it to. I don't have a business plan. The most I know is to the end of the year, and that's a stretch. And it works for me. So the biggest thing for me is really just letting go of the fact that this doesn't make me lazy or dumb. It's that I can't see it. And actually, it saves me a lot of time when I don't create this fake plan for myself, because it'll put so much stress on me. And then if I want to go a different way, I'm like, oh, but this was the plan, right? Like, this is what I was supposed to be doing. But that was based on information in the past. And the way my mind works is on very spontaneous information. It's like, now we know this, now we're going this way. I'm built to be a very spontaneous person. I'm not built for a lot of plans. And this helped me embrace that. And honestly, this is just what changed my life. I'm also something called a 5-1 profile, which is known as the Heretic Investigator. And your profile is actually the closest thing to your personality type. It's the main archetype that you're here to fulfill. So if you don't like your energy type, first off, how dare you? It's an amazing thing about you. But second, it actually says a lot less about you than your profile does in terms of how you show up and who you are. Your profile is much more about the what, and your energy type shows you the how you are playing out this archetype, etc. And for me, as a 5-1, I'm here to become an authority on something that I study very deeply, get all the details and information and facts on, usually through some typical form of learning, like classes or books or, self-study, something like that, and then share it in a practical and understandable way for people. We're supposed to give very grounded information, stuff that people can really use. Human design was actually channeled by someone with a 5-1 profile. Ra Uru was a 5-1. It's all about, doing this in a new and revolutionary way too. So 5-1s are really supposed to create a new way of explaining stuff to people, even if it's like a system that we already know, or if it's knowledge that we already have. They might go down and find some new knowledge, but a lot of the time we get down to the bottom of something, and then we come back up and it's like, did anyone else notice this part? Because no one's talking about this. We should talk about this, or this new way of looking at this thing. We're also here to be problem solvers. So I'm supposed to pop into a situation and solve a problem and then kind of dip. That's the role of the 5-1. I'm not supposed to stay a super long time. And that means that usually I'll seem like this random hero who just came in and fixed thing. And that's oh my God, there she is, gone with the wind. And all of this solution finding this problem solving, it's going to come from the knowledge that I've gained through studying and learning. That's not the case for every 5-line. Some of them are based on experience. Some of them are based on pure talent. For me, it's through something that I've really learned and studied and known. So it's always been really important for me to truly, deeply feel like I'm actually an expert on something before I start sharing. Before I do any sharding, before I start sharing this with other people, because that's where my authority really comes from, is truly knowing this thing. I could get really into my profile. There's so many different parts of it, but the biggest thing I've actually had to learn that's made a really big impact on my life is that I just kind of have to accept and embrace that I am controversial and I'm not going to be liked by everyone, which is, no one's going to be liked by everyone, but it's really important for a 5-line to know, because the thing about the 5-line is we're here to be kind of radical and edgy and go against the grain, because we're here to share a revolutionary way of doing something. So it's going to be different. And on top of that, people project onto us more than they would project onto other people. Sometimes that can be really, really helpful for us because it's a good projection. So if you're a 5-line, it's when people are like, oh my God, I love you, you're amazing, right? Or someone's like, oh my God, you're so good at this, you're my hero, you're the person we've been waiting for. And if we can live up to that, people are really happy. But if we don't live up to that, they'll blame us, even if it's not who we ever said we were, or it's not something that we ever said we could do for them. And then there are just some people who will project bad stuff onto you, and it's like, oh no, what did I do to deserve that? Where did that come from, right? So for me, being a 5 line, this has really been about saying, okay, you know what? This is not nearly as personal as I thought it was. And also taking accountability for the times I didn't show up as my true authentic self, because that is like the death knell for the 5 line. That's just going to make things worse because you're going to lean into things that aren't right for you. And when you disappoint people, that's when they're going to have a problem. And the reason I did this was because I was afraid people wouldn't like me. And I don't like conflict. I'm a Libra. I hate conflict. And I've always felt that people have had a very strong response to me, positive or negative, without me doing anything. And I didn't really like that. I wanted to control that. I took it very personally. There have been many, many times when I've wanted to say something, especially through Just Follow Joy, that I thought would be helpful for people, maybe even life-changing for people, or just change their perspective on something and make it easier for them. But I realized that there were some people that was going to inflame, or I could imagine someone's response that they didn't like what I had to say. And I didn't want people to come after me with pitchforks for something that I said and burn me at the stake. It's called the heretic for a reason. So I really did hold that kind of thing back just so I would make sure that there wasn't any conflict. And I realized at a certain point, if I'm going to make an impact, any meaningful thing you say is going to bother some people, but it's going to really help other people. If it's something you believe and you can stand behind and it's heart forward, then there's a point to you saying it, especially because 5 lines are usually the people who say the thing first. They say what everyone's thinking, but no one is speaking out loud. So we're meant to be kind of candid and maybe sometimes brutally honest. The 3 line is similar. So I had to accept that, if I say something and 4 people write an angry email back or leave angry comments under an Instagram post or something like that, but I change the life of one person, or I make things so much easier for them, I make them feel really validated, then that's totally worth it. And as I move forward in my life, it's now becoming a really big theme of mine to allow myself to be controversial and know that people are just going to take it how they take it. Really allowing myself to do that in my life, but in particular in my business. Now, if you look at these shapes on my chart, these are called the energy centers. And I have 3 of these colored or defined. And that basically means that these are places where I create energy consistently. I have access to energy consistently there. And these are also the forms of energy I can always rely on to be taking me the right way. They say that your defined centers are your anchors. These are like who you truly are, because your undefined centers are where you pick up a lot of energy from the outside world, which isn't a bad thing, but that does mean that we are inconsistent there because we are adjusting to wherever we are. So I have my sacral center, my spleen center, and my root center defined, which means that I am here to work and create consistently, operate based on instinct, and start things. I'm also built to live out of a lot of like excitement and joy. Like these are really, really big themes for me, which is so funny because I actually got a Chinese astrology reading once, and she was like, what I'm seeing in your chart is that you're very good at expressing joy. Like it's very obvious that you're joyful. And I was like, well, funny you say that, because but all of these things are really important themes to me that I live out of. And whatever energy centers you have defined will tell you about the energetic themes that are going to be important for you. So like what you live out of. So for example, if you have a defined mind center and a defined throat center, your mind energy and your throat energy, so sharing your thoughts and opinions and viewpoints of the world, that is going to be a very consistent thing that you live out of. And that is going to be a big way that you play out your purpose too, using your energy. Now, you'll also notice that I have a lot of undefined centers. So the majority of my centers are undefined. And when I first saw my human design chart, I was like, yikes, like why is there like nothing colored in my chart? What's going on? Is that bad? And what this means is that this is just where I take on a lot of energy from the outside world. I'm empathic in all of these different places, but it does also mean that these are places where I can pick up on conditioning and be pulled away from my true self. And where any of us, when we have undefined centers, we can really judge ourselves there because we're not consistent there. And we've been trained to believe that if we have uncertainty or inconsistency anywhere in our life, that's a problem, that we need to figure that thing out and we need to be more solid there. But some of us aren't built to be that way. And as you can see, I'm certainly not. And I'll tell you that the toughest places this has been for me are in my mind center, my heart center, and my G center, because that means that I deal with a lot of mental uncertainty. I'm someone who's kind of built to change my opinions as time goes on. I'm not really meant to like stick to one belief and hold on to that for dear life. That's not the way I really work. And I also have not the most organized mind. It doesn't mean I'm dumb, but it means that when someone asks me a question, sometimes I'm like, I have to get back to you on that. I don't know. Even if I know the answer, it's like I have to go get my file real quick and organize my thoughts, because it's not consistent how I organize my thoughts, which was tough for me for a really long time because I thought that did make me stupid. And it's certainly some people treated me that way. I would have this blank look on my face and they're like, what do you mean you don't know? Like, what is wrong with you? I also, with my undefined G center, I don't have a consistent sense of direction of where I'm supposed to go in life. I also have a terrible sense of direction in general. I just got back from Boston and I told my mom, I was like, if I didn't have Google Maps, I would just never have come home, and it wouldn't have been because something happened to me. It would just be because I now live on the streets of Boston because I couldn't find my way home. And then finally, with my undefined heart center, I'm built for inconsistent motivation, which I thought for the longest time just made me so lazy because I just didn't have that same drive that someone like my sister does all the time. You know, it's not consistent for me and I can't depend on that. So I thought I was weak or bad for all of those reasons. But what I've actually learned is that there are incredible gifts in all of these. So with my undefined mind center, sure, I don't always have an answer on the spot, but I can see things from so many different perspectives and come up with some really out of the box solutions and ideas. With my undefined heart center, I don't have to be motivated all the time to make money and succeed. I can just ride that motivation when it's there. That's okay. When it's not, I focus on other things. And with my undefined G center, first off, I am an identity chameleon. Like, I take on the personalities and identities of the people that I'm around, so I can get along with a lot of different kinds of people, and I can easily kind of like fit into different groups. Also, I don't have to go finding places with an undefined G center. They find me, and purposes find me. Like, the next stop in life kind of finds me. So I don't have to figure out where I'm going next. And this gets to be a really fun ride where I just kind of end up in some place and I'm like, well, this is cool. Don't know how this happened, but I'm here now and I love it. And it's all working out so perfectly. Also, I'm super empathic to locations and places. So I can pick up a lot of information and energy from a spot that someone with a defined G center might not necessarily be as tuned into. I'm also something called single definition, which means that all of my energy centers in my chart that are defined, they're connected in one group with no breaks in between them. And that means that I feel very, very complete on my own. I don't need other people coming into my aura to help me feel like my energy is flowing all together. And to be honest, I like to spend a lot of my time on my own. I love my friends, but when I'm with other people too much, it feels like I can't think. It actually feels like something is getting in the flow of my own energy. It's like this extraneous stuff that I really don't need. Not only that, but I have something called mountains environment. And we are notorious for not just needing time alone, but disappearing for a while, like Irish goodbying, when we just feel too in it with a group of people, or when we're all up in the hubbub, like we can't really think clearly or like come to a conclusion clearly. I mean, we'll usually come back. We just needed to get some air for a bit, right? So it's so normal if you know someone with mountains environment that it's like, where'd they go? It's like, oh, there they are. Where were you? And they're like, I don't know. I was just hanging out behind the building. It's just on my phone. I was just chilling out, right? Lastly, I want to talk about Incarnation Cross. So we talked about Incarnation Crosses, including my Incarnation Cross last year on the episode on my birthday. But if you don't know, your Incarnation Cross is a combination of your top 4 gifts. So it's going to be your sun, your conscious earth, your unconscious sun, and your unconscious earth combined into one core life theme, or basically your life's purpose. So people often use their Incarnation Cross in their work, not always, but it's usually just because these are our top gifts. So when you're living in alignment with your soul, you're doing soul work, it's very, very common for it to be a job that lines up with your Incarnation Cross. However, that's not always the case. And honestly, with my business, that's kind of not the case either. Like, I'm doing what I love, but the thing about Incarnation Crosses is that your life's purpose, along with the energetic themes and gifts in your chart, those apply to all of your life. So it's not just applying to your career, because the universe doesn't really like see our life in categories that way. So these are things that you can use in any part of your life. And that's kind of the way that I use mine. So for example, even though I use my gifts to do my work better, they don't really like determine the kind of work I do, if that makes any sense. Also, I use my Incarnation Cross in other parts of my life to understand relationships better, to help other people in a way that has nothing to do with human design. My Incarnation Cross is the cross of limitation, 32, 42, 56, 60. There are actually different versions of each Incarnation Cross, which is why I specify. So my friend Lindsay Robinson actually has the cross of limitation as well, but it's a different combination of gates. So it's different gifts that kind of come together and contribute to this. So what this means is that my life's purpose is actually about knowing what's realistic, which is really funny because I read people's star charts for a living. Like my family would probably not describe me as the most realistic person. My dad certainly didn't when I left my 9-to-5 job to start this business. But really this is about knowing like what's going to work for us, what has the potential for longevity, what we should cut our losses on, that kind of thing. So I'm very, very good at sensing a good idea, or just whether or not something will work. And I have this natural ability to know if it has what it takes to make it through. This is in relationships. This is when people tell me they want to go a certain way in their careers. This is when someone mentions a project or a business that they want to start. And the thing about this is that I can't really control when I know, and I can never tell you why I know, because this is based on intuition. This is based on gate 32, which is an intuitive gate. It's right here in the spleen center. So I know, I can just sense it, but I can't really tell you why. I also can't just like do it on command. This gift just kind of tells me when it tells me and when it thinks that it's important for me to know. And I'm also good at figuring out solutions based on how things are. This is called the cross of limitation because it's about accepting the limitations that we're working with right now, so we can come up with a solution that actually works, like given the framework that we're in, one that's actually realistic and that we can figure like, okay, this is going to work based on like what we're working with right now. However, I will say that this does mean I have to be really careful about being overly pessimistic about situations. I can really struggle sometimes to see outside the current situation and like see that there could be something better. So I have to remind myself that reality can surprise me, right? Like I'm here to understand reality, but the way or direction reality goes, it's not always what we think it's going to be. So I have to make sure to keep an open mind and really tap into my intuition rather than my fear or my mind. Because if my intuition is telling me like this will work, but it scares me because it doesn't make sense to me, I can let fear get in the way. And I can be like, oh, no, this is never going to work because we're stuck here. We only have this. So I have to trust that when I get that feeling, to trust it, because I don't know the whole story. Like there could be more coming. There could be limitations that are broken in the future. So it's about trusting that and knowing that there can be this really beautiful version of reality that we end up living in. Whew, but that is it for today. Like I said, this is only a few things in the human design chart, and it was really rapid, really pared down. But if you would like to learn all about your design and what this means for you and what makes you so special, two things. One, you can get a one-on-one human design reading with me personally, but I also want to remind you that you can get a human design and astrology combined reading with me and my lovely, lovely friend and personal astrologer, Caitlin Gehring. It will be 100% personalized to you and what you need to know about. If you just want a general reading, we can do that. If you have a specific question or topic you want to dive into, we can do that too. Also, if you have anything in common with my chart and you have like a specific experience about it that you want to tell me about, I would love to hear. You can, if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment down below. But with that said, that's it for today. Thanks so much for being here. You rock, and I will talk to you next time.